We expected with Paxlovid to be a relapse. It's not unusual. It's common.
Press Secretary Corinne Jean-Pierre. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. For our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns the property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Listening to Fox News.
A settlement is reported between West Virginia, one of the states most impacted by the opioid crisis, and several drug companies.
Lawyers and $100 million settlement with 3 major U.S. drug distributors. The funds to be given to cities and counties over 12 years. The lawsuit in state court accused AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and McKesson of fueling the opioid epidemic. Attorneys call the settlement monumental for families and communities. A vice president for AmerisourceBergen says it will avoid years of litigation and help get resources to areas affected by opioid misuse. The settlement still has to be approved by the individual counties and municipalities. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
Heavy rain is forecast Tuesday in eastern Kentucky, where at least 37 people have died in nearly a week of flooding. Many people still unaccounted for. Governor Beshear says that number will grow. Rain has helped firefighters battling a wildfire in Northern California that's killed at least 2 people and burned 100 homes and other buildings. The McKinney fire, though, remains out of control despite Monday's downpour. New details are coming to light about Johnny Depp's defamation suit against his ex-wife.
Amber Heard had a brief stint as an exotic dancer. That was one of the revelations. That was from unsealed court papers from the Johnny Depp defamation trial. Another revelation from the docs was that Depp did not want his friendship with disgraced rocker Marilyn Manson outed at his trial. Depp was awarded over $10 million in the trial, in which Heard penned an op-ed in the Washington Post in which he claimed to be a victim of domestic abuse. The docs were published over the weekend by legal commentator Andrea Burkhart, who crowdsourced more than 3,300 to purchase the records. The court papers revealed the behind-the-scenes haggling on both sides as they tried to get evidence admitted and kept from the public. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Bring it. Boss 104, The Point, and Star 101 are bringing you back to the 80s and 90s throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua this Saturday, August 6th.
Come down and get on the dance floor as I, DJ Daryl Lazama, get on the turntables, giving you the best of the 80s, 90s, and more.
Star 101, The Point, and Boss 104 will be in the house.
DJ, pump it up some more.
Plus, we have all kinds of cool stuff to give to you.
Free food giveaways,
Buckets of beer,
T-shirts, and hourly cash prizes.
the 90s throwdown dance off.
Back to the 80s and 90s throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Antigua behind Circle K Beachside this Saturday, August 6th.
The party is from 8 p.m. to midnight, so come down and get your groove on.
Special thanks to Lolita Cabot of Holiday Realty and JV International, the 80s and 90s throwback this Saturday at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill. Party starts at about 8 p.m. See you there.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lazama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A good way to start a radio program, if that radio program is a conservative call-in talk show that values American patriotism, dedication to the island of Guam, good dental health, and no body odor. If that's who you are at the right place. Okay, we've talked about the Second Amendment here for a second. Now we go to Demi E. Cotney. I'm just wondering if I should retire this section of the program. You know, it's like having a meeting of the St. Louis Browns fan club.
This section is called Press the Meat, but they keep giving you plant-based editorials.
Exactly, yeah. And it's white flour at that.
White flour.
Yeah. So another barn burner today, you know, one is just it's going to anger half the population, and the other half of the population will be very happy. The title, Our View, Rainbow Graduates Follow Through on Commitment. The Guam Department of Education celebrated the achievements of 173 Rainbow graduates Monday. These were graduates who, for various reasons, needed extra time to complete credit hours to receive their high school diplomas. No matter the time frames, timeliness, or stigma, this is an achievement deserving of great respect. In a day and time when it's far easier to give up and give in, these students charged forward and rose to the challenge. Going to the end of the editorial, their success demonstrates that time is of no consequence when it comes to turning goals into reality. Wow, that's a real motivational editorial here. Congratulations to the Guam DOE Rainbow graduates of the class of 2022 and their team of supporters who encourage them every step of the way. Well, it's true, but, you know, really, this might have been something that I might have said had I been invited to the graduation for these guys. It's kind of a nice graduation speech, but it really falls far short of being a real editorial.
Can I be a curmudgeon?
You have an unlimited license to be a curmudgeon, Jose. The only thing that I ask is that you don't try to out-curmudgeon me.
That's not going to be possible, but
thank you.
I do attempt. Now it makes me laugh a little bit about how they frame this rainbow graduates. I would like to go with the analogy a little bit more and just say it's the silver lining graduates.
Yeah, really.
The rainbow. I applaud their efforts, but graduate on time next time, people.
But you know, rainbow used to be a really nice word. The pot of gold at the end of rainbows. Patsy Cline, I never promised you a rainbow. You know, a rainbow was something that was always really very desirable, right? How's it? What kind of day is it going to be? It's going to be a wonderful day. Look, there's a rainbow. How wonderful. But I saw this in the paper this morning, and I thought, oh, no, not again. Because I noticed that Guam Community College has now established an LGBTQ scholarship.
Yeah, that is curious.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a hindrance to education.
Well, it is if you want it to be. Yeah. So when I saw this Our View Rainbow graduates, I thought maybe it was more of the same, and I was once again going to have to put on my curmudgeon shirt here and say, what do we need to have special graduations for LGBTQ folks? Can't they graduate with everybody else? But that wasn't it. But not much of an editorial again today. The Post, of course, is not writing editorials. However, today, one of our Blue Star Club members filled in the gap, and I got a letter from her that she said. I'll read it. She says, "Dear Bob, thank you again for the shirt and the time on the air last week." That was last Wednesday when we had Troy and Helen Metalbork and Lee Weber in here proudly wearing their Blue Star T-shirts. I'm just waiting for Troy to wear his Blue Star T-shirt on his TV version of Candid News. I haven't seen it yet, but I don't have much patience.
It'll be the envy.
Yeah. Anyway, it sparked some thoughts that I put into a column for today. I talked to Phil yesterday and thought all was well, but this morning, no column. I asked why. I don't know how long it will take for an answer. In the meantime, here's a sneak peek for you. But before I read the sneak peek, I'm going to read what I got today. I just talked with the new editor-in-chief, and I'll leave the name blank until it appears on the wet masthead. My column was too negative and too demoralizing for their paper. I pointed out that it was not against their paper. It was about all journalists on Guam. If they had any journalistic integrity, they'd print it. But hey, it might hurt their feelings. Feel free to read it into the record on Tall Tales with pleasure. So here it goes. Last week, I was discussing journalism with three gentlemen who have been involved with the local media. As we talked, I thought of a scene from The Sound of Music. Start at the very good beginning, toward the end of the movie, as the Von Trapp family is trying to quietly flee their estate, they are met with the accusing lights of Herr Zeller's car. Herr Zeller, who had already sold out to the Nazis, has a few SS men in tow. After an awkward encounter, Herr Zeller said, "I have not asked you where you are, where you and your family are going, nor have you asked me why I am here." And this is a Nazi, and he's caught him red-handed, so to speak. Apparently, Von Trapp answers, "We are both suffering from a deplorable lack of curiosity." The mainstream or mockingbird media collectively suffer from a deplorable lack of curiosity. Hear, hear. This has been true for decades as the lines between government media and news commentary have blurred. But COVID has made the journalistic integrity a contradiction in terms. Since the BBC launched the Trusted News Initiative to combat COVID and COVID vaccine disinformation, we can trust that news we get is only the news that fits the mainstream narrative. The rice is red. I have had my column censored at least 4 times because I dared to go against the narrative on 1, abortion, 2, climate change, 3, COVID. Just calling it the Wuhan virus is enough to get me blue penciled. Tall Tales, not calling it the Wuhan virus will get you blue penciled. Apparently, my opinion is not valid and cannot be shared if it contradicts the narrative. Right now, there are at least a half dozen stories hiding in the open on this island. And I have to believe that either the reporters have been blinded by the narrative and can't see them, or they are afraid to ferret out the truth for fear of censure. Or are they just too lazy? When I was a cub reporter, there was no internet. If I wanted to go after a story, I had to go to the library, to the next county to interview a source, to the appropriate government agency, to the crime scene on the back road in the middle of nowhere. I had to dig. No wonder we like Helen so well, huh? She's just writing kind of what I would characterize as kind of a grandma column, but I never miss it, because she throws some really good stuff in there. Good, maybe a sort of a kind of a cross between Will Rogers and Bob Woodward. If you're a Will Rogers aficionado. When I was a cub reporter, there was no internet. I had to dig, and then I had to write my story in the newsroom within yards of my editor, who would make me watch as she ripped my sentences apart and put them back together. There were no remote newsrooms. That's how I learned the news business, and that's why I grieve the current state of lazy, lackluster, decentralized news reporting. Let's give Helen a big hand. That's the kind of stuff that earns you a blue star. She's already got one. She's already wearing the uniform. Wear it with pride, Helen. You earned it again today.
And it's interesting that they refuse to print or publish that, almost like saying, we're not going to publish it, but we're going to prove your point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, next we go to the card, and here's what I got on the card. I've got Anderson Air Force Base versus the Stranger, L'Étranger. I've got a stakeholder versus the United States Attorney. And then I've got Vanessa versus the Democrat Party, and that's all I got. Oh, yeah, and I've got one from my buddy Jonathan Turley, and then we go back into the stuff that's been on the card for a couple of weeks that I never got to. So we talked again about the narrative, and just to refresh your recollection, the narrative says the rice is red. The fact is that it's orange. And nowadays, apparently the key to success in government and in the media is you don't pay that much attention to the facts and the truth. The narrative is more important. And I told you yesterday how Paul Zerzan got canceled by the Daily News when he had the temerity to say, let's stop calling that rice red. It's not. It's orange. Paul is one who's not afraid to buck the narrative, by the way. Okay, going to Public Law 36-34. These guys never get it right. Northern Soil, Water, and Conservation District Board. Item 6, old business. Item 7, new business. But they're keeping a secret what the old business and new business are, meaning whatever they decide is void. Let me see, I suppose. Yeah. Next item on the card, I've got to use the hard copy of the Post here for that. What did I do with it? Yeah. I'm going to show you the hard copy of the Post. Okay, can you see it? Now you'll see that the gentleman on the left is Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. And beside him and in front, because she's short, is the governor. And to Josh's right, you'll see the legendary Nancy Pelosi. Question, who is the dude with the shaved head between and behind Nancy and Josh? Who is it, guys? It's not wearing a uniform. You'll see a guy kind of in the right background who's wearing a uniform. But what is that guy doing there? Is he Nancy Pelosi's security? Is he the governor's security? Is he some officious intermeddler that just snuck in there and wanted to have his picture on the front page of the Daily News? And this is one of those stories that's hiding out there that Helen just mentioned. We have a caption: Josh Tenorio welcomes House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And that's it. You don't identify anybody else. I want to know who the mystery man is. And I'm going to keep asking, who is the mystery man until I find out. Now, if you're listening on the radio and you can't see Facebook, pick up a hard copy of the Post, or you can go, the e-edition has it, the online edition doesn't, and see if you could tell me who that dude is, the mystery man with Nancy Pelosi. I'd never make it with the Daily News or the Post. I'm too curious. I wouldn't just shut up and write and put the press release in the news hole. Yeah, I also did it this way. I printed it, and you see the circle with the arrow pointing to Mr. Mystery right there. Okay, next I go to the stakeholder versus the United States Attorney. Recent media accounts detail groups of foreign nationals landing in small boats at various locations on Guam. Local officials are understandably concerned but lack jurisdiction. Due to U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' lack of vigorous enforcement, there is litigation underway by states to transfer some immigration powers to their control. Like I understand Texas is attempting to buy used Coast Guard cutters to secure the border. However, the outcome is uncertain. Although the 2003 amendments to the Immigration and Nationality Act place significant responsibility on Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Attorney still has authority to enforce, administer, and interpret immigration law. Let me repeat that. The United States Attorney still has authority to enforce, administer, and interpret immigration law. We have a United States Attorney here on the island named Sean Anderson. He's not a Guam Anderson, he's an Anderson. The following federal offenses are relevant: entry into the United States without inspection, bringing in, harboring, or employing illegal aliens, use of, oh boy, I said the word alien. I must be a racist, right? Ann Paris Hattori. If you're not listening, if you're no Ann Paris Hattori, rat me out and tell Ann Paris Hattori that I just said the word alien on the radio. I'm therefore, for sure I'm a racist. Bringing in or harboring, employing illegal aliens. Use of fraud to obtain a visa or misuse of a visa. While it's not a criminal offense for a foreign national to work outside the conditions of his visa or overstay the visa by 180 days, the violator is subject to removal from the United States. Local officials with significant information concerning illegal immigration on Guam can present that information to a federal grand jury. A proactive approach by the U.S. Attorney can prevent this issue from going beyond control on Guam. So, I kind of knew that, entry into the United States without inspection. I remember that from the days I used to practice immigration law myself. So inspection, this is what inspection means. You arrive at the airport, you walk through the line, you come up to all of the windows there. There's an immigration officer behind the window. You show him your passport. He may say something to you. He may not. He may stamp your passport. He may not. But when you present yourself to that immigration officer, that is what is known as inspection. Now, it doesn't matter how you arrive here. If you were a really strong swimmer and you swam down here from Rhoda, you're still supposed to report to an immigration officer for inspection. And according to the stakeholder here, if you don't, it's a crime.
When I sailed on a canoe to Rhoda and back, we were boarded and inspected as well. Nowhere near an airport, nowhere near a port, a boat port. Right on the ocean.
Did you arrange for the inspection?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they also knew, I mean, they can see you coming. This is what makes me, I'm very curious of how they don't see these boats closer to shore, because you can see everything from a satellite.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah, well, my own stories about inspection. You know, there was a time when we brought cruise ships in here, and they would send an immigration inspector out to the ship.
Right.
Maybe 3 days early. And by the time the ship pulled into port, everyone had been inspected. A nice touch, right? If you ever go to a place called the Northwest Angle, one of the things I really like is geographic oddities. There's a place called Northwest Angle, Minnesota. It's on the far shore of Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods is on the border between the United States and Canada. The border jots up. There's like a little jot up on the border, and that jot and that little bit of like a panhandle takes in a peninsula on the other side of Lake of the Woods called Northwest Angle. So the only way that you can get to Northwest Angle, Minnesota from the rest of Minnesota is take a boat or drive around through Canada to get there. And when you get there, it just says, welcome to the United States. But when you're coming back, you're supposed to go to this telephone booth in Northwest Angle and call somebody and say, I'm coming back. And then there's a sign at the border that says, if you didn't report to inspection, you're going to be capital punishment and life in prison, all that, all that kind of stuff. And then something that I could never do again. Once upon a time, I spent some time in New Mexico, and I've always been kind of fascinated by El Paso and Juarez. It's a third world, just, a stone's throw from the United States, the Rio Grande. And there is a place on the border between New Mexico and Mexico where you could pull off the freeway, drive in there, and there's this parking lot, and then there's a statue. It's like there's a park there, and there's a statue. And I'm thinking, why is the statue's back to the parking lot? So I walked around the statue, and I figured it out. The statue was in Mexico. The parking lot was in the United States. And there was one of those little cable fences about 18 inches off the ground, and then a sign that had been all graffitied and everything like that telling you to take your car somewhere for inspection. So I actually crossed over into Mexico, looked at that statue, and then came back. I think the statute of limitations is run by now, but I did not report to an immigration inspector, so I made an illegal entry into the United States. I guess this will forever keep me off the Supreme Court, having this in my background. So it's a good point. And the stakeholder says, not presenting yourself for inspection, bringing in, harboring, or employing illegal aliens. Now, we've all seen that video on the internet of the guy pulling up and saying, where did you came from? Have you seen that one, Jose?
The one with the car.
Yeah, and the lady walking out of the boonies and things like that. Now, whoever, and then there's a car that picks them up, possibly illegal. Now, I understand that those people are one of two things. Either they've come to the United States, come to the Northern Marianas on a visa waiver, or they're waiting for political asylum. They're candidates for political asylum. And because they are candidates for political asylum, they don't have any documents, they can't board a plane to the rest of the United States because you're pre-inspected before you leave here for Honolulu. So they're stuck in the Northern Marianas. Or else they are people who have overstayed their visas or working out of status, et cetera, and are paroled into the United States. So they're probably legally here. However, that doesn't mean that they can come into Guam anytime they feel like it. So I wonder if anybody in the Attorney General, no, I already know the answer to that one. One would think that Levin would be on the phone with Shane Anderson, right? But I don't think so. Because, you know, I can't resist this. It's time for a little self-promotion here. This came out today, Pacific Island Times. Yeah, the August issue of Pacific Island Times. And if you were to turn to page 8 of Pacific Island Times, you would find a story that says what Levin could have done. And the name of the column, believe it or not, is Tall Tales. And you could probably figure out who the author of the column is. And I won't read the column to you. There's a paywall on the internet, but you can pick up this whole paper for $1.25, and it's really worth the money. Isn't it, Jose?
It definitely is.
Yeah, it's probably the best paper on
Always
the island.
comes out on the 2nd of the month, and today is the 2nd of the month.
Yeah.
It is out.
So I'll give you a little preview here by telling you what the last sentence in this column is. It's not what Levin did. It's what Levin didn't do. How familiar you are with that tagline, huh? Okay, let's take a short break, and I'm going to come back and do a little bit more self-promotion. I'll bet you can't wait.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, there it was, sports fans. A little bit more self-promotion. It's the Tall Tales official T-shirt. And if you're driving around and you didn't see it on Facebook, I'll tell you what it is. It's the Tall Tales red and gold rectangular logo. And above it, in script, it's in gold script, it says, "I'm a tailgater." And I expect everybody out there in our international radio listening audience is going to want to buy several of these, some from a couple for themselves, gifts, you name it, right? But I'm in the process of opening the Tall Tales store, but I do want to do a little market research first. So if you could pick up one of these T-shirts for $15, or No, $14. A little bit more if you're bigger than I am. But if you could pick one up for $14, how many would you want to buy? So you could just post your answer on Facebook here. You don't have to spell out. You could just put down like 6 or 7 or 10 or whatever number you figure would be.
You're starting with a low number, Bob.
Yeah, I know. It's better, under promise and overperform, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. 10 wouldn't. 10 might be okay for some folks. So that's that. Next, we've got Vanessa versus the Democrat Party. And being a Republican, and an unabashed Republican, I don't think Republicans can thank Vanessa enough. I don't think the Republicans have had a friend as good as Vanessa Williams in years. And just to remind you who Vanessa is, she's made the Tall Tales Hall of Fame with one of her famous pronouncements. Vanessa has said, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Every other choice is of equal importance, whether to go on vacation, whether to paint the house, whether to buy a new car, you name it. That's Vanessa. So there's been some pushback here. I'm going to start out here with the Candid News workup. We talked about it yesterday, but I want to refresh your recollection here, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this. I wonder what I got here in the green room. Nobody yet, I guess. Okay. So this is how Troy wrote it up on Candid News. The attorney for the Democrat Party posted a sample Democrat ballot for the primary election on her Instagram feed with the caption, screenshot in and go vote early at Weston. So let me try that again. I didn't read that very clearly. The attorney for the Democrat Party of Guam posted a sample Democrat ballot for the primary election on her Instagram feed with the caption, quote, screenshot it and go vote early at Weston, close quote. But it's not simply a sample ballot. The sample ballot she encourages voters to use crosses out the gubernatorial team of Congressman Michael San Nicolas and Sabrina Salas Montanani and congressional candidate Senator Talina Nelson. On the senatorial side of the ballot, Ms. Williams crossed out the names of 9 of the 21 vying to make it onto the general election ballot. The names she crossed out include Speaker Therese Terlahi, Jonathan Savaris, Chris Barnett, Senator Joe San Augustine, Senator Amanda Shelton, John Ananich, Dave Duenas, Franklin Bunker Mano, and Armando Dominguez. Armando Dominguez is a real threat. As I mentioned on earlier shows, Armando Dominguez has been running for a legislature longer than I've been on the island, I think. He's probably run it half a dozen times. Okay, according to the Democrat Party of Guam Executive Director Chirag Boshwani, this list does not necessarily reflect the party's position. Just because the attorney for the party came out and said that does not necessarily, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but not necessarily, right?
That statement is equal to might as well have not made a statement at all.
Exactly. And then he goes on to say, it's a quote, yes, Attorney Williams is a Democrat Party of Guam's attorney. Mr. Bojwani said in a statement, she is smart. That's what I think he told us. Opinionated. I guess we figured that one out. And active on many issues, especially a woman's right to choose. The party respects her opinion and her choices for the Democrat Party election. I guess this is the Democrat Party's position, right? This makes about as much sense as the Republicans saying that when Frank Uggan stood beside the road with Felix and Tony, he wasn't necessarily endorsing the Republican candidates.
But we support his choice to endorse the candidate, though it's not necessarily an endorsement.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, life used to be so easy, you know, when words had meanings. And a lot of times a word would have only one meaning. Pressed further on whether the sample ballot Miss Williams posted does not reflect the party's position, Ojwani added, Vanessa's expression of who she is considering for her votes is hers. It is not the party's position. Oh, little backtracking there, Chirac. But this would not be the first time the Democrat Party this year would try to control the outcome of a primary election. Then Troy goes into the closed primary, which we don't need to talk about too much here. Anyhow, that's the context. And the picture of the ballot with the names marked up is all over the internet. I expect everybody's seen it right now. And when I went through this the other day, my analysis was that the ones that got crossed out should be wearing that like a badge. You know, if you were on Vanessa's hit list, that's probably the biggest break you're going to get in this election, because you stand out, you stand for something. I just can't get over this. You know, it'd be like, let's say I'm the counsel for choice broadcasting, right? Retained counsel, not in-house counsel. And I go for an interview, and I say, you know, Sorensen Broadcasting is a much better company than Choice. And K57 is a much better show, has much better talk shows than Bob Klitzkie.
I highly doubt Ray would go on and say, he doesn't represent Choice Radio, but I respect his personal opinion.
Exactly. I mean, you just don't do that. You just do not do that. Once you have a position that identifies you with a company, an agency, a person, like a client. You know, if I represent Donald Trump, you know, and I'm kind of Donald Trump's Rudy Giuliani, I wouldn't be able to say, you know, I represent Donald Trump and I advance all these election cases for him, but really deep down, Donald Trump is a dirty skunk and an honorary pig stealer, if you ever saw the movie Oklahoma. Yeah, you just don't do that kind of. What are you saying? Is that your official position concern? Why are you representing him if he's a dirty skunk and an honorary pig stealer? Well, that's just my private opinion. Publicly, I'm his lawyer. Angel Sablon, you are the executive director of the Mayor's Council. And one of your mayors, Jesse Bloss, the mayor of Jonia, really disgraced the whole institution of mayoralty. He's going away to federal penitentiary. Did you know that? Yes, I did. Now, isn't it true, Angel, that when Jesse Bloss came up for sentencing, you went down and testified, you gave favorable testimony telling the judge, please give him a break, he and I are like brothers, etc. Don't you think that put the Mayor's Council in a bad light? Oh, no, I wasn't testifying as the executive director of the Mayor's Council. Those were just my opinions. Wrong. You know, anybody, if I were governor, the first thing I guess I would do would be to put that in the form of a test. And if you can't pass that test, go look for a job somewhere else. You know, the word loyalty comes in here. You know, lawyers have a duty of loyalty to their client. You can't take somebody's money, represent him, speak on his behalf, advance his interests, and then come out and say things that are disloyal to him. Yeah, my client's got a suit pending in the district court. I did a really great job on the pleadings. Maybe he's going to win on summary judgment. He really shouldn't win. But, you know, I think he probably will because the other lawyer isn't very good, and I don't think he's going to be able to beat my motion for summary. You can't do that. That wasn't my official opinion. That was just my personal opinion. But here's Vanessa Williams coming along saying, we are in the primary. And everybody knows that in the primary, if you have any role in the operation of the party, if you were an officer of the party, etc., you don't take sides during the primary. If you're outside, yeah, you know, if there's somebody in your party running that you don't like, you could primary that person, run somebody against him. But if you're the chairman of the party or the vice chair or the whip, or the chief cook and bottle washer, you don't endorse anybody in the primary. After the primary is over, then you stick with the party's ticket. That's what being a party officer is all about. Unless you're Vanessa Williams, who holds an important position in the party. She is the party's counsel. And whether this is the way it ought to be or not, people oftentimes ascribe more credibility to a lawyer than they do to a layman. So she comes carrying this sword, you know, the sword of partisanship, and she pokes 12 of the members of her own party with that sword, and then later on says, well, you know, and the party said, what was Chirac's? It took Chirac a while to figure out what he ought to be saying. Let's see here. She is smart, opinionated, and active on many issues, especially a woman's right to choose. The party respects her opinion and her choices for the Democrat primary election. You know, he finally figured out, you know, I'm doing the same thing that she's doing then by saying that. I better back out of this. I stepped in it.
And then they have this. They demonstrate. So I can't get the words out. They demonstrate that they can't even hold people accountable for what they do anymore. They made this thing that nobody believes, that she made the decision on her own to leave, to resign.
Yeah.
Who writes something like she did over the weekend and they go, you know, by the way, I'm going to resign because I feel like I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, this reminds me of, it reminds me on the waterfront. Vanessa, this ain't your night, kid. We're going for the price on Wilson. In other words, you're going to have to take the fall.
Just be honest. You guys asked her to leave because it angered those candidates and their supporters who the Democrats need.
Exactly. Not to mention the rank and file Democrats who are probably saying, what in the hell is she doing beating up on fellow Democrats? I don't care if I want to vote for those people or not. They're Democrats. You know, if you want to beat up on somebody, beat up on a Republican. Mark up their ballot and send it around. Well, there's some interesting stuff floating around the island here. I got this one. I don't remember. I can't tell you who it came from. It sure looks like Tom Shea. It's kind of interesting. He says it goes to what Tony Babauta said for the party, and the party being pro-choice, quote unquote, which means the Democrat Party respects a woman's right to kill babies in the womb. That's what it means. And here it goes. This is an unfortunate statement. He, meaning Babauta, states that they are a party of women's right to choose. They must be blind because women with cancer, hundreds of them, have to fly off island. Why? Because we don't have a GYN oncologist on Guam. Women with autoimmune diseases must fly off island because no specialist here to care for them. These women have no choice. Where is here the party in all this? Where are their advocacy to allow these women with life-threatening diseases to choose to remain on Guam to be treated? No, they don't care. They don't care about women's choices. These women with cancer have no choice but to fly off island for life-saving care. And Jay said something like that a little earlier. You know, when Calamity Jane was out looking for abortionists to come to the island, and Shay said, yeah, we should be looking for doctors to come to the island. We shouldn't be looking for abortionists. We should be looking for this and that and the other kind of specialty. Shay nailed it. He, you know, I may even forgive him for his white coats for Black Lives Matter. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll come back to Vanessa.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, so here we are again. We're still on the same item on the card here, Vanessa versus the Democrat Party. I have a statement dated August 1 that came out from the Republican Party. With the 2022 election cycle underway and with the doors now open for early voting for the primary election, the Republican Party of Guam is proud to announce that we are united to work for the people of Guam. Our slate of candidates consists of, 1, a gubernatorial team which brings compassion and honesty to the table, which are vital components as our island heals from a health and economic pandemic. 2, a congressional candidate who brings the energy and resilience to ensure that Guam is well represented in the nation's capital. 3, 16 heavily qualified senatorial candidates with an array of backgrounds inclusive of education, public safety, and finance. It includes current and former senators, heads of government entities, small business owners, veterans, and an attorney. The Republican Party of Guam is proud to share that our slate of candidates is experienced, accountable, and focused on just one priority, which is to serve the people of Guam. We support all of them and encourage all voters to please vote for them as well. Let me repeat that last line. We support all of them and encourage all voters to vote for them as well. What a novel approach for a political party.
And this is where the Democrats handed two gifts to the Republicans. Number one, Vanessa Williams and her strikeouts, strike-throughs. And two, the bungling of a statement addressing that by the Democrats. Because this could have easily been the Democrat response as well. But they chose not to support any of their candidates.
Exactly.
They decided instead to rationalize Vanessa Williams.
Well, and then there's a third gift, Jose, and that is that if you study political warfare, and let's say you got candidate A and candidate B, if he can, candidate A wants to take candidate B off message. Candidate B has a message, he's just for this, for that, the other thing. He is not in favor of the two things, etc. So if A can come up with an issue that's not related to B's message, then B has to go off message to come back and combat A's attack. And that is very successful because you can't win if you can't get your message out. So that's the third really wonderful gift that Vanessa has given the Democrats, because nobody is talking about the Democrats' message, which is, of course, probably a break for them because their message is we want to allow women to kill babies. But they can't go on their own message because they're still Vanessa-ing, a new verb here. They're still trying to clean up after Vanessa. Here's the Democrat Party statement. The Democrat Party of Guam chairman thanked attorney Vanessa Williams for her selfless gesture to step down as the DPG attorney following a controversial post endorsing candidates who, like her, were pro-choice, a highly charged issue in light of the recent overturning of Roe versus Wade decision on reproductive rights. Vanessa is actually a good person. She makes her own bed every morning. She does the dishes. She helps little old ladies across the street.
She's donated to charity.
She donates to charity. She never jaywalks. She wouldn't even think of tearing the tag off a mattress. Vanessa is really good, and we applaud her selfless gesture to step down. A selfless gesture. While we are certain that Attorney Williams' social media post reflects her personal political views on her favorite Democrat candidates across all races, I need to be clear that her social media post is not sanctioned by the Democrat Party of Guam or any Democrat candidate, said the Democrat Party chairman, Tony Baba Bauta, who spoke to the media on a remote straight from the 19th floor. Bauta said, however, I respect her decision to focus on advocating for such an important issue after I made a total mess of the Democrat Party. Yeah, and of course, Tall Tales is pretty much anti-abortion. But if you got to have somebody on the other side, I don't think we could have picked anybody better than Vanessa, Jose. She's the ideal opponent here. Democrat Party Executive Director Chirac Mojwani added, the Democrat Party of Guam has a big tent. A big tent. And it's not intent. And this reminds me of, I mentioned Will Rogers earlier in the program. Will Rogers was a comedian, commentator, kind of a political commentator in the 30s and 40s, Jose. And once upon a time, he was asked about his politics. And he said, I don't belong to an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. Yeah, so I guess Vanessa could say the same thing, right? We understand the benefit of and subscribe to our Democrat priorities like investment in healthcare and the social safety nets that are so important for Guam's future. We need Democrats in office to ensure those priorities continue. It was an honor to work with someone like Vanessa. Wow. All right, let's go to the big halftime show, and we'll come back to Vanessa right after the break.
Veiled threats from Beijing.
There is no reason for Beijing to turn a potential visit consistent with long-standing U.S. policy into some sort of crisis or conflict, or use it as a pretext to increase aggressive military activity in or around the Taiwan Strait.
National Security Administration spokesman John Kirby, but Reuters reports Chinese warships have sailed close to the median line of the Taiwan Strait, and Chinese military aircraft have flown close to it in the last several hours. Heavy rain is forecast in eastern Kentucky today, where more than 36 people have died in flooding in the last week. Hundreds of people remain unaccounted for. The National Weather Service will be sending investigators to both sides of the Ohio-West Virginia border this morning to determine if it was a tornado that damaged several homes and barns late Monday. America is listening to Fox News.
Bring it. Boss 104, The Point, and Star 101 are bringing you back to the 80s and 90s throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Anigua this Saturday, August 6th.
Come down and get on the dance floor as I, DJ Daryl Lazama, get on the turntables, giving you the best of the 80s, 90s, and more.
Star 101, The Point, and Boss 104 will be in the house.
Yo, DJ, pump it up some more.
Plus, we have all kinds of cool stuff to give to you.
Free food giveaways,
Buckets of beer,
T-shirts, and hourly cash prizes.
the 90s throwdown dance off.
Get back to the 80s and 90s throwdown at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill in Anigua behind Circle K Beachside this Saturday, August 6th.
The party is from 8 p.m. to midnight, so come down and get your groove on.
Special thanks to Lolita Cabot of Holiday Realty and JV International, the 80s and 90s throwback this Saturday at the Hermit Crab Beach Bar and Grill. Party starts at about 8 p.m. See you there.
It's primary election day in several states, including Arizona, where former President Trump's influence is to be tested again.
Arizona Republican Senate primary candidate Blake Masters is backed by former President Trump and funded by PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel. But his closest rival, power company founder Jim Lehman, has largely self-funded his campaign and highlights endorsements from law enforcement groups and the National Border Patrol Council.
Those guys on the Border Patrol and standing down there with their hands tied, if they want to do their job, I'm going to get it back for them.
In the governor's race, Trump's backed former news anchor Carrie Lake, while Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence and outgoing Republican Governor Doug Ducey have backed her rival, real estate developer Karen Taylor Robeson. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency as a method to speed up efforts to combat the monkeypox outbreak. There are about 800 cases of the mostly sexually transmitted disease reported in California. 2 gun companies are being sued over fatal shootings at a California music festival.
2 lawsuits filed in federal court in Vermont claim the 2 companies, Century International Arms and Romanian firearm producer Romarm, failed to adopt reasonable safeguards that enabled the gunman to legally acquire the weapon in Nevada, bring it to California, and use it in the attack at the Gilroy Garlic Festival that killed 3 and wounded 17. The suit says Century Arms may have also violated Vermont laws which prohibit large-capacity magazines. The company is based in Florida but has a facility in Vermont where the Romarm rifles listed on the company's website as AK style are modified to comply with U.S. law. After the shooting, Gilroy police said the gunman fired 39 rounds from an AK-47 style rifle. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
Stocks closing slightly lower on Wall Street Monday. The Dow dropped 46 points, NASDAQ down 21. The S&P 500 closed 11 points lower. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show. Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lazama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-RGIO.
The Super American Circus is here, and Circle K is giving away free Circus Kids tickets. Drop by your closest Circle K location and get up to 4 tickets absolutely free. So come one, come all, and enjoy free tickets to the greatest show on island today. Circle K, take it easy. Ticket is valid for kids 12 years old or younger. Must be accompanied by a purchased adult or VIP ticket.
Okay, here we are, back after that great halftime show. And I'm going to keep working on, I picked up something on Facebook here. We're going to keep working on Vanessa Gate. Yeah. So I hadn't finished reading the statement from the Democrat Party. Picking it up, we need Democrats in office to ensure our priorities continue. It was an honor to work with someone like Vanessa, who was instrumental in getting our party registered and compliant with FEC, a requirement to opening a stable funding pipeline from the DNC for crucial funding to promote Democrat values and elect leaders that subscribe to such values that will better our island as a whole. Despite the Democrats' identification as the party of reproductive rights. Now, once again, George Orwell's Newspeak, when they talk about reproductive rights, it's the opposite of reproduction. What they're talking about is ending a woman's ability to reproduce by killing the baby in their womb. When they're talking about reproductive rights, they're talking about abortion. Bob Bauta goes on to say, Democrats have space for a wide range of views. I see our party like a complicated family. Democrats are not pro-family. A complicated family. Two mommies and a 10-year-old mother and going on. That may disagree at times, but in the end, we all come together to support each other and fight for the people of Guam. The Democrat platform supports a woman's right to choose. In other words, the Democrats' party platform supports abortion. So if you're trying to figure out which way you want to go, to me, that's the tipping point. But it also notes that the Democrat Party is a party of inclusion, going from bad to worse. Oh, you're for inclusion? Well, okay, then damn sure I'm not going to go with you. We respect the individual beliefs of each candidate on this difficult issue, and we welcome all our members to participate at every level of our party, said Bobota. Very ineffective.
Extremely, and this is the, I think this is the lifting of the veil of how chaotic and complicated this party is here on Guam, because it seems like it's together because they spend a lot of money, because they have a lot of money to spend, and two, a lot of jobs are on the line because the governor is the boss.
Yeah.
But again, look at this statement compared to the Republican statement. The Republican statement could have been the Democrat statement, but instead they chose to laud Vanessa Williams, the one who just created this mess for them. That doesn't make sense. They have no idea what they want to say to people.
No, they don't. Yeah, I would have thought that whatever they said would have been addressed to the dozen people that Vanessa canceled.
They didn't even speak to any of them. They didn't even apologize to them.
Yeah. The Democrat Party wants to apologize too and list the names. We support your candidacy 1,000%, and we'll continue to support your candidacy. And we we are fortunate that we will no longer have to deal with Vanessa L. Williams as our attorney. So we won't be confronting these kinds of problems again. It's what they should have said.
But like you said, they're more concerned about being the culture of abortion than they are about this inclusion in their party.
Yeah, and that becomes really apparent when we get to Vanessa's statement. The culture of abortion, it trumps everything else. Okay, so that's the Democrats and the Republicans. And let's see, I've got another one here, I hope. Therese Terlahi. Now, you know, the titular head of the Democrat Party is the governor, Lulian Guerrero. A sitting governor is the titular head of your party. What has the governor said about this? Nothing. Because I suspect that the cooler heads in the party said, whatever you do, take the governor fishing or something like that. Don't let her get near a microphone because she's just going to go on her pro-abortion rap, and that's all she'll do, and she'll make things worse rather than better. So don't let her get near a microphone. And we've got Therese Terlahi, who is also a heavyweight in the Democrat Party because she is the Speaker of the legislature. And Therese released her own statement. She was one of the Democrats that got canceled. You know, the title for today's show, "The Blue Star is Mightier Than the Black Strike Through." Very good, Jose. Yeah, so here's what Therese says. The fallout continues for Governor Leon Guerrero and her campaign. This is actually from Candid. As Democrats began calling out what appeared to be more voters as petty tactics by a faction of the party promoting her at the expense of others. Speaker Therese Terlahi, one of the 12 Democrats, crossed out on a sample ballot promoted by ex-Democrat Party of Guam attorney Vanessa Williams, questioned the sincerity of the effort and said in a statement that she will not be silenced into towing anyone's political agenda. That's what Therese said. She's not going to be silenced. Terlahi, the top vote getter in the last senatorial election, is seeking re-election. The popular speaker has been the maverick of the legislature, often calling out Governor Leon Guerrero and her administration on matters of fiscal and health policy. Over the weekend, Ms. Williams began promoting a sample ballot that had Terlahi and 11 other Democrat candidates' names crossed out. Williams, who resigned as party attorney in the wake of the political fallout, attributed her sample ballot to her personal stance in support of pro-choice candidates. Ms. Terlahi drew the ire of pro-abortion advocates when, as chairwoman of the legislature's Health Committee, she called public hearings on Bill 291. That's the so-called Heartbeat Act. The legislation which she did not author is the Heartbeat Act of 2022, a measure which would allow residents to sue anyone who provides or otherwise assists with the procurement of an abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected. Terlahi had some choice words for anyone behind the effort to blacklist her and other Democrats. Now, that's the question that I really want to keep working on. Who's behind this? Is Vanessa the sole actor in Vanessa Gate, or is she carrying water for somebody else, like maybe the governor, as an example? So here's Speaker Terlahi's statement. I can only guess from letters I have received that my name was crossed off this individual's ballot because I held a public hearing on Bill 291 instead of a roundtable or holding the bill in silence as they wanted. Now, who do you suppose they is? We know it used to be, we were thinking, who are they? There got to be two of them. Not so much anymore. Nowadays, they can be just one person, right? Could the governor be they? It's because of the hearing that I had on 291 that those opposed to the bill can now say that the overwhelming majority of those testifying were against 291. There's a record, and the public was able to be heard. They should use that to gain the support of senators for their side instead of alienating them.
Wow, what a racist statement to say.
Alienating, yeah. Somebody report Speaker Terlahi to Ann Parasatori. I think it's not strategic on their part to presumptuously assume senators and candidates' positions or broadly characterize them as socially conservative or other labels when this is a long-term complex issue with variations of bills and laws we must deal with based on the specifics of each one. The public knows that I did not sponsor 291 and was not responsible for another senator referring it to my committee like a hot potato within hours of receipt and without any review. Who is the potato handler here? That would be none other than Tina Rose Munga Barnes, the chairman of the Rules Committee. When a bill is introduced, theoretically, the introduction of the bill is the first reading. They used to read at least the title of every bill at time of introduction. It goes to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee decides which committee has jurisdiction, sends the bill to that committee. The public knows I did not sponsor Bill 291 and was not responsible for another senator referring it to my committee like a hot potato within hours of receipt and without any review. In other words, Munga Barnes wanted to get it out of her hair. Other bills, like the one for tax rebates, were not referred so quickly. Jim Moylan's part-time legislature bill was never referred. Okay, other bills, like one for tax rebates, were not referred so quickly. The referring senator's name was not crossed off the sample ballot. So Munga Barnes' name is still on the sample ballot. She wasn't part of the cross-off. The community can see for itself the work I have done throughout my life in support of women and children, against sexual abuse, against potential medical negligence, and to take care of the poor and those suffering from toxic exposure. I will continue to create a forum for the truth to be told and the public to be heard. I have always trusted that when the government is open and transparent, all women in the community are capable of discerning the truth for themselves and making their own choices of who to vote for, even despite party officials' bias or missteps. So if the Speaker and the Governor were at loggerheads up until now, I suspect this only distances the farther, which, as far as I'm concerned, is good news for voters, certainly good news for Republicans.
Just keep in mind, Vanessa Williams did not create a rift. She magnified it.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's there, people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got one more that I got to read into the record here. Yeah, I saved the best for last. Manana Sijuus, Dems. As a mother and voter, I've been extremely vocal and clear that I personally would not be supporting anti-choice candidates and did not think my personal stance as a voter would surprise anyone here. That's not the point, Vanessa. It's not whether they would be. The surprise was that you didn't keep it to yourself. I sincerely regret that my personal pro-equality position, pro-equality, and I got into that yesterday. Remember, Jose? What's pro-equality about killing babies in the womb? I sincerely regret that my personal pro-equality opinions have caused anyone to doubt my loyalty and duties to the party first and foremost, or attributed to anyone else but myself. I alone am responsible for my words. It was my hope that more within our party came out vocally in support of women and people who get pregnant.
And people.
Yeah.
Women and people.
Women and people who get pregnant. So, Jose, what kind of people can get pregnant that aren't women? Wait a minute. Do you ever have any ambition of being on the United States Supreme Court?
I do.
Well, then maybe I shouldn't embarrass you with this question.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my hope that more people within our party came out vocally in support of women and people who can get pregnant. She just, can I borrow your shovel?
This is what Obama meant by shovel-ready jobs.
Exactly, yeah. So she says to somebody, can I borrow your shovel? I can't dig the hole fast enough and deep enough with my hands. I need a shovel. So this, sports fans, this is your Democrat Party. The Democrat Party was hired counsel who is vocally in support of women, and she's also in support of people who can get pregnant. Now she puts her middle initial down as L, but we're going to change it to W here in the show. Vanessa Woke Williams. Yeah. It was my hope that more within our party came out vocally in support of women and people who can get pregnant by rejecting government legislation. Is there any other kind? Yeah, I think maybe there were some folks who could read over there at the Democrat Party and said, good, I'm glad she's out of here. I don't even need to get to Vanessa Gate. Yeah, rejecting government legislation that intrudes into private medical decisions. The last thing I want is for Democrats not to work together to push pro-equality stances. So if they're not pushing pro-equality stances, which apparently in her mind means pro-abortion stances, maybe that's where the other people who can get pregnant come in. So she wants them to work together, but if you happen to be one of the folks that were crossed out because you are anti-abortion, she doesn't want you to work together. That's what she said. The last thing I want is for our Democrats not to work together to push pro-equality stances or any other work that promotes the ideals and values of the Democrat Party. Tony Babauta already told us that the values and ideals of the Democrat Party are abortion. I truly love this party, and I believe in what we can do for our island when we unite. Uniting, of course, means canceling out the folks that are not pro-abortion. Stopping here for a second, this reminds me of some of the half-baked apologies that I've seen people make who really screwed up in public, and they come out and say, what I said last night, I know hurt people, and the last thing I wanted to do was to hurt people. So I sincerely apologize if anyone was hurt by what I said, because I didn't mean to hurt anybody. This is Vanessa, right? Yeah.
Non-apology apology.
A non-apology apology. Sort of the virtue say. This is a virtue signaling policy. I want you, first of all, to recognize my greatness. Yeah. I truly love this party and believe in what we can do for our island when we unite. I will be providing an official release and resignation as the party's counsel. But I'm taking this last message as an opportunity to each and every single one of you, even those who I have strong differing beliefs. I think she left out the word with. I respect the work you do and the bravery and sacrifice it takes to be a public servant under constant public scrutiny. I hope by my removing my official relationship with our great Democrat Party that will allow all of you to continue to work together and push forward toward our party's ideals, abortion, that government should work just as hard for the powerless as it does for the powerful, educating our children, that is the ones that make it out of the womb, keeping our community safe, creating good-paying jobs, and providing health care to all as a right, not a privilege. I gotta come back to that one too. And she winds it up. Dankulu nasiduus ma'ase, for allowing me to share space with you all. I wish you all a good campaign and hope to see Democrats take every seat this election. Biba Democrats. Yeah. Vanessa, if you decide to start up a side gig, a side hustle, don't put yourself out there as an author to help people write apologies. You will not last very long.
She does have a career in solo duetting. Speaking from both sides of her mouth.
Okay. So I want to come back to this. I've got Senator Chris Duenas, who wants to talk about the Williamsgate blacklist. But let's go to the seventh inning stretch, and then we'll come back and we'll find Chris out there in the center field bleachers.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so here we are, our seventh inning stretch at World's most beautiful ballpark, Wrigley Field in Chicago. I peeked at Facebook, and Troy helps out here a little bit with nomenclature. He suggests that now we have Williamsgate and the Blacklist 12. Very well done. We've got to enshrine the Blacklist 12 here on Tall Tales. Perhaps call attention to them from time to time. Let's see, I've got Senator Chris Duenas on the line who wants to talk about the Blacklist 12. So tell me about the Blacklist 12, Chris.
Top of the day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, and my favorite talk show host. There's actually if you go back at least a month, in the last month I've gotten 3 Facebook notifications of being another individual on Vanessa Williams' blacklist, and I gotta agree with you, Your Honor. I mean, she's just been the gift that keeps on giving. She's had no less than, I think this was the crescendo, I guess, the other day or over the weekend, but she's had no less than 3 Facebook post rants. The other 3, up until the blacklist came out, were myself and the other co-sponsors of 291 on various rants. Some of it associated with crime against children and minors, which I completely understand is abhorrent and agree, but use that as a platform to say, as you've been talking about on your show so wonderfully, that, let's prevent these, potential young people from any potential harm by just making sure that they don't exist at all, which seems ridiculous. But so I wasn't surprised when this came out, because I had a feeling that it felt like it was growing in terms of the anger, the vitriol, and what would probably end up being some sort of, not only. As a matter of fact, when Roe was first, when Roe and Roe versus Wade was overturned, or basically the Supreme Court made the decision, one of the first statements from Vanessa Williams was, none of these candidates for the legislature will be able to hide. We will do everything that we can to uncover their positions and make sure that every single candidate for the legislature's position on the issue of pro or anti-abortion, I don't even want to use the life thing or choice thing anymore, whether you're for killing babies or against killing babies, will be vetted. And so I was not, when I saw this over the weekend, I said, this does not surprise me at all. So I think that but I wanted to say something that I made another observation that I think you made yesterday, and I think Ray may have made this morning. This seems a little bit more than that, though, Bob, because I see a couple of names on there that I know that are pro-life individuals, or at least do a little bit of the dance, right? Say I am pro-life, and then they do the, they do the qualifier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But but I know at least 2 on those that are approved are definitely straight away come out as pro-life, and having been, taught that and raised that way by their parents in the Catholic faith and the like. Like I said, they do a little bit of a dance, but other than that, so I'm thinking, I think I heard you share this view over the last couple of days, or at least yesterday. I think this is bigger than that. Do you think that is as well?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I see the dark hand of sinister forces in the Democrat Party certainly wanting to see Therese Terlahi go into a different line of work.
And I wanted to, go ahead.
After you, sir.
Well, I wanted to go into that one because I thought she was extremely brave and extremely eloquent in her release, although I quarrel with one portion of it. I wanted to just take a brief moment for that. If, and I hope it does, Bill 291 reaches the floor at some point, there's these beautiful Catholic ladies that I know you know that spent over 3 weeks vetting the written testimony that was submitted as part of the record. There's an enormous amount of that testimony that is form letters. Individuals who have disputed their names even being included in that. I don't know how that happened. But also almost a third of that, I think we've talked about this before, Bob, people from off island. And as far as I'm concerned, I just don't care about their opinion. They don't live here. They don't vote here. They don't pay taxes here, and they don't have anything to do with our community. So
they can kill babies in their own hometown. They don't have to come over here and help us.
Doggone right. And as far as I'm concerned, their opinion as far as where we live and how we want to save our babies has nothing to do with their opinion. So I quarrel with some of the findings, and I also would quarrel with the fact that I think you might agree with me. I know you probably watch just about every hearing. I think as far as the panelists are concerned, it was well in favor of pro-life or people who don't want to kill babies. And I think we can go back to the record and substantiate that. I know Pete Scroll actually, had worked with the folks that actually did the vetting of the testimonies. But I believe we can easily prove that the panel-wise was much more in favor of not killing babies. But going back to so I think I think the issue with the speaker, who I think was fair, very fair, in the hearings, and I've actually enjoyed working with her. We've had our battles like every legislature should. But I think she's been very diligent, and I think she's been. I think the problem that they have with her is she just hasn't toed the line.
I detect something else too that would be seen as a shortcoming by some people.
Mm-hmm.
She's not propelled by anger.
Right.
I remember I've known her for a long, long time. And no matter what the situation is, she always seems to come across as an even-handed, calm person who, if she is angry, has her anger under control. On the other hand, the pro-abortionists seem to be primarily propelled by anger.
Right. And I was talking with a friend of mine today, and another thing on the floor, and this is actually Bob Klitzkie-esque, right, to the majorities that you and Speaker Forbes and others had managed. I mean, if you were going to earn your living on the floor, you just had to know what you were doing. And Therese is extremely prepared. It's got to be her attorney training and everything else. But I mean, you better know what you're doing on the floor. And if you do, you stand up to the situation, and you put, you know your strategy, you know what you're talking about, you know how you want to, use the rules and everything else. It's game on, right?
Yeah.
But you're not going to get away with just not knowing what you're doing, and that's just strategy. That's how you run the floor, right? But if you got your game on, and she's down to, you're gonna get through what you need. We've got several on our side of the aisle that, you know what I mean, that no question about it. I mean, we get our stuff on. We get the bills on if we need it. We've been able to make a big difference. You remember when there was that quarrel over the inclusion of some wording that could have cost the general fund $150 million, and we knew how to handle that situation. So you just got to have your game, right?
Yes, sir.
But other than that, she's fair. She's not going to go outside of that, and you just got to know what you're doing, and that's all part of the deal, right?
Sure.
So I think that's the issue too, and I think that's the issue when, particularly, the administration has had to come down and do battle with some very strong Republicans who are dropping the gauntlet, and a speaker who's playing it by the way it should be done as well. Particularly when it comes to fiscal responsibility, she's been very strong on that issue. And then basically just about accounting, you know what I mean, and where the money's going and why the money isn't going where it's supposed to go. And so I cannot purport, and I would never put anybody's position on a very serious issue of pro-abortion, anti-abortion. But I think her leanings and her fairness showed that she's probably more in line with what the party position is, but yet played it fair. And so to me, I wanted to hone in on that, Bob, because I just think that that's the clicker there that makes it bigger than just this issue.
Yeah. So
it's about wanting somebody out of the way, really.
Yeah. So if Therese is the target, then the others are just a deception plan to kind of camouflage the target. We didn't just single out her. Vanessa Gate involved 12 people, the blacklist 12. And there are probably a couple of other people that they want to see not in the legislature. I have a feeling they don't want to see Chris Barnett in the legislature.
I agree with you. He ran a very tight ship on his and Bree's show. They were very even-handed. They allowed all kinds of dissent, on their show, and in the beginning of when they started the link, that was a transformation from a COVID show to the link. They had particularly the lieutenant governor on early on, I think basically weekly. The governor did a few cameos, I think. And then when it just got unfavorable, or I wouldn't say unfavorable when it was fair, but they didn't like the way it was going, participation just started to dissipate and eventually disappeared. So, at least for that part of the situation, he was very hard on, the docs and the medical group. And then he was interviewing the eventual individual, Dr. Wen, who just had enough and walked, but would be a regular appearance in terms of seeing things differently. And I think that he is also his position with having released his commentary. I think they just really look at him as somebody else who they're just not going to be able to control. And I think you're exactly right.
And that's it. They won't be able to control him. He will do things like he's done already, and he isn't even in the legislature. He will do things, like telling them that the rice is orange, that it ain't red. They better get their stuff together. That will embarrass them, because he will catch them doing something they shouldn't be doing, and he won't put up with it, and he'll call them on it. So that's the last kind of guy that they want in their team.
Right. So, yeah, I just, I share your point of view. I share Ray's point of view. I think that this is definitely something larger and definitely something that, how do you say that? Sometimes they say that, the part that wasn't supposed to be said was said.
The quiet part of loud, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In closing, Bob, I just have to make this observation, and this might sound a little wild and maybe a little over the top, but I was watching again on Fox News last night on how the crisis of, providing infant formula and formula for babies is really still a really, really major problem, and probably might get worse. And I'm wondering if something like Vanessa and the other group will come out and say, see, there's another reason why we just got to stop bringing those babies into the world for a while. You can't feed them.
If you study logic, if you think about logic, sometimes logic doesn't always lead you to a good answer. Logic depends on the basic premise that you start with. And if you start with a faulty premise, logic can lead you to a faulty result. And they're starting with this faulty premise. Better not to bring a child into the world than to bring a child into the world that doesn't live up to their expectations. So yeah, we're not able to provide this formula for infants. Therefore, mothers, prospective mothers, and others who give birth, you might want to think this if maybe you ought to get an abortion until we get this formula thing straightened out. It's logical if you start out with that basic premise. It's horrible of course, it's also horrible.
Particularly if you think about those folks who have limited means.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to close with this, Bob, to reassure our international listening audience. Although there's been this discussion of persons who could give birth.
Yes.
I want to declare that I am not one of them.
You are not one of those people who could give birth?
Not at all.
Have you ever been one who could give birth?
I have never been able to have that happen physically within my being from the get-go.
From the get-go. Well, that's pretty conclusive, Chris.
From the time my mother, who I love very dearly, gave birth to me, my father knew and told me that I would never be an individual who could give birth. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
I got it, Chris. Chris, I'm going to give you an assignment for tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
I want you to pick up a hard copy of the Post and tell me who the mystery man is on that front page picture.
Okay, would this be the Pacific Island Times or the Post?
The Post. You should also pick up the Pacific Island Times to find out what Levin didn't do.
I'm going to do that. I heard that earlier, and that's one of my. So I guess I'll be picking up at least a couple of papers tomorrow. So yes, sir, assignment will be completed.
Okay, Chris. Thanks again. Always good to talk to you.
Take care, my friend. Looking forward to the balance of the show.
All righty. And let's head for Churchill Downs.
Hafa Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services that you wouldn't choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
So here we go, home stretch on Tall Tales. We are now at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. Fortunately, we haven't been flooded out, but we are at Churchill Downs. I wanted to finish up here on Vanessa Gate. We'll be talking about Vanessa Gate tomorrow and about the Blacklist 12, so on. But Vanessa says in her virtue signaling apology, she says that I hope by removing my official relationship with our great Democrat Party, that will allow all of you to continue to work together and push forward together our party's ideals that government should work just as hard for the powerless as it does for the powerful, educating our children, keeping our communities safe, creating good paying jobs, providing health care to all as a right, not a privilege. Now, I wish she were here because I'd like her to explain to me how this right works. Because if once again, if you apply a little logic, that rights correspond with duties. I have a right to walk down the street without having somebody come up and punch me in the nose. Because everybody out there in the street has a duty not to punch me in the nose. So if someone has a right to public health, whose duty, or a right to health care, whose duty is it to furnish the health care? Is it the doctors? Especially if we're talking about the powerless, the folks that don't have much money. Well, do we require doctors to work for nothing? Do we require people who do have money to pay for those that don't? Healthcare is a right, is nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's like saying everyone has a right to not starve to death. So if I go down to Linda's Cafe and walk in there and say, I'm really hungry, man, I'm starving, they got to give me lunch for nothing. They can't charge me for it, right? Because not starving is a right. And it's the same kind of fuzzy or woolly thinking. Healthcare is a right, not a privilege. So it is depending on who you think should pay for it. Now, of course, for the Democrats, I know who they are sure must pay for it. The government should pay for it. So the government pays for health care. Where does the government get the money to pay for health care? From the citizens, from you and me and everybody else. So when you don't have to pay for something, that I get this mental image that, I don't feel very well today, so I go to clinic number 427 and I walk in and say, I don't feel very good today. I'd like to see the doctor. And the doctor, of course, will see me on the spot, prescribe medicine for me, prescribe tests, x-rays, CT scans, blood tests, whatever. But I won't have to pay for it because health care is a right, not a privilege. How much do people tend to conserve things that they don't have to pay for? Not at all. So you would very quickly have an extremely expensive healthcare system that didn't benefit anyone. And if everybody is so enamored. Well, in Europe they have government healthcare, and you read up on it. And the folks in Europe, the folks in Canada, the folks in Scandinavia are not that happy with it. Folks from Canada come down here when they want to have certain procedures. Because the line is so long in Canada and a lot of the specialties aren't available. So our capitalist system will provide health care under the right circumstances if we keep the government out of it. The reason that some people can't get it is because the government is so deeply embedded in it. I was talking with an allied health professional the other day, someone that has treated me in the past. I won't even tell you what the allied health professional does. I don't want to identify that person. But really, really good at what they do. But when I turned 65, I was turned away because the allied health professional says, I can't take anybody over 65. And I said, I won't use Medicare. I'll just self-pay. I'm sorry. I can't take anybody over 65. It's the Medicare rules. So I was 65 a long time ago, and I ran into that same person recently, and we were talking about that, and she says, if you want to come in, she said, I'll help you out. I won't charge you for it because I can't charge you for it. And I said, are you getting anywhere with Medicare? She says, yeah, we're gradually working that way, but I have a small shop. I don't have very many employees. And in order to do Medicare, I'd have to have one person who does nothing but the Medicare bookkeeping. It's so complicated and it's so exacting. And if you don't do it right, you don't get paid. Now, as someone who benefits from Medicare, they send you out this statement of benefits quarterly. And a lot of times the stuff that, the doctors do for me, they don't get paid for because they didn't fill in the right blank or some silly thing like that. It's just nonsense. So this idea of health care is a right, not a privilege, is right there in the same league as her pro-equality opinions and women and people who can get pregnant, and her, and her willingness to kill babies in the womb, and author statements like this one. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Okay, I got somebody in the green room here. It's R. Keith, and he wants to talk about government-run health care. Go for it, R. Keith.
Good afternoon. I'll make this short. I know time's limited. I'm a regular reader of the UK Daily Mail newspaper. They have a very good website. Some of it gets a little tabloid, but it's interesting to get their take on world events, especially American politics. But I bring it up now because there are regular stories, probably once a week, about the condition of the National Health Service, which is the British National Health Care. And it's just collapsing. Just read it for a week and you will come across 2 or 3 stories. The most recent one that caught my eye was the story of the number of people who died waiting to get into the emergency room at a London hospital because the ambulances were backed up 9 deep.
Oh.
I mean, okay, our health system isn't perfect, but you don't read about that.
Right.
And the number of people, they estimated 2.5 million people sought cancer treatments and other, what do you call them, like long-term diseases, care elsewhere during COVID because they couldn't get an appointment for months on end. And again, we're not perfect, but we ain't that. So anyone that thinks that, socialized medicine is the panacea, try reading that newspaper for a week.
Yeah, I've run across things like that myself, Keith.
On an up note, a friend of mine works at the airport, and he did confirm that the flight that brought Nancy Pelosi to the island and then off to Asia the other day, the call sign was indeed Broomstick 1.
Was called what?
The call sign for her plane was Broomstick 1.
Broomstick 1. They must have a tailgater up there signing those names. Keith.
Have a good afternoon.
Always a pleasure, Keith. So when I got 3 minutes to go, Jose, 1 minute to go, okay? Well, I'll show you my T-shirt again before I say goodbye to the president. I got it? Good. Yeah.
And I've heard that wearing the shirt makes you a little taller. You can't tell because you're wearing it, but I've heard it makes other people rise in height.
Wear a tailgater shirt. It
Absolutely.
Gives you 1.5 inches or so of extra height, huh? Yeah.
Lifts you in your shoes.
Yeah. As it should. Okay, I'm waiting for. Are we there? Okay, here we go. Let's go, Brandon.
USG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. HD3.
The leader of a terror group assassinated. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the man who replaced bin Laden as the leader of Al-Qaeda, has been killed by a drone strike in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Sources tell Fox it was a CIA drone strike that killed Zawahiri. The president said the strike did not kill any civilians or Zawahiri's family, who was in the compound at the time of the strike. A senior administration official said the al-Qaeda leader was killed on the 3rd floor balcony at 6:48 a.m. Sunday morning in Kabul, 9:48 p.m. Eastern on July 30th.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. President Biden had authorized the strike and spoke from the White House Monday evening.
We make it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying in a statement, by hosting and sheltering the leader of al-Qaeda in Kabul, the Taliban grossly violated the Doha agreement that led to the U.S. withdrawal from that country. The president spoke from the balcony at the White House as he is back in isolation after being diagnosed with what the White House calls a COVID relapse. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will reportedly go ahead with a visit to Taiwan despite threats and increased military activity from China. While not confirming the planned visit, National Security Administration spokesman John Kirby saying,
"We will not take the bait or engage in saber rattling. At the same time, we will not be intimidated. We will keep operating in the seas and the skies of the Western Pacific as we have for decades."
Reuters reports an increase in Chinese military activity in the Taiwan Strait, the body of water that separates Taiwan from China. Eastern Kentucky facing the prospect of more flooding. Heavy rains forecast today. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of the 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
A mass shooting Monday evening in northeast Washington, D.C.
A total of 6 individuals who were shot. 1 individual is deceased. Of those individuals that were shot, they have all been taken to area hospitals. They are all adult males.
That's D.C.'s police chief Robert Conti, who says they don't yet have a suspect or a motive and says he's sickened by the violence. Fox News has learned a request from D.C.'s mayor for the National Guard likely will not be met.
Fox has obtained internal documents from a source familiar with D.C. National Guard planning, which say due to a significant uptick from COVID-19 and civil disturbances, quote, the readiness of the D.C. National Guard has been severely degraded. And the D.C. National Guard, quote, does not currently have a standing domestic response capability. The suggestion being Washington, D.C. leaders should exhaust other options first. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Jury selection begins in Dallas today for 65-year-old Yasir Saeed's murder trial. He's accused of shooting his 2 teenage daughters to death a dozen years ago in so-called honor killings. One of the girls called 911 after being shot and identified her father as the shooter. A music festival in Atlanta has been canceled over weapons.
The Music Midtown Festival in Atlanta has been called off. Billboard reporting the likely cause recent changes to Georgia's gun laws that prevent the festival from banning guns on the publicly owned festival grounds. The festival, which was supposed to be held mid-September, was set to feature headliners My Chemical Romance, Future, Jack White, and Fall Out Boy. A statement posted on Music Midtown's website confirms the cancellation. The gun law, officially known as the Safe Carry Protection Act, expanded Georgia's already permissive gun statutes to grant residents to open carry. However, the Georgia Supreme Court in 2019 set new rules, which created a legal issue for me.
Fox's Michelle Polino. And I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
This is Poll Paris with Fox News Director of Polling, Dana Blanton.
In the battleground state of Pennsylvania, our Fox News survey finds GOP candidates clearly haven't closed the sale with Republican voters. In the Senate race there, Democrat John Fetterman leads Republican Mehmet Oz by 11 points. Here's why. 89% of Democrats favor Fetterman, but only 73% of Republicans support Oz, a 16-point gap in party support. Plus, more Democrats have a positive view of Fetterman than Republicans have of Oz by 21 points. There's more. 45% of Oz supporters have reservations. Just 35% back him enthusiastically. For Fetterman, 68% of his supporters do so enthusiastically, 33 points higher than for Oz. Same story in the Pennsylvania governor's race. Republican Doug Mastriano trails Democrat Josh Shapiro by 10 points. Again, Republican voters are lukewarm because GOP candidates haven't closed the sale. I'm Dana Blanton. That's your poll Puri.
It's not the definition that economists have traditionally relied on.
It's not a game. There's a technical thing called a recession, and its definition is as I've described it.
That doesn't sound like a recession to me.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city.